JJ the CPA here. Hope you're doing well. So related to when do you account for the Paycheck Protection Program on your tax return, the PPP. Now, the first question you may ask is, well, why would I reflect it on my tax return? Because it doesn't have a tax effect. And you're right. It does not reduce down your tax deductions, and it is not taxable income. However, for C corporations, partnerships, and S corporations, we do know that you are going to need to account for it because when you got the PPP, it was considered a loan. So originally it would go on your books, your financials as a loan. So how do you get the loan off? Well, you can't put it to income. You can't put it to deductions when we're talking about your tax return, because obviously it'd have a tax effect. But what it is tax-exempt income that offsets the expenses. And so the IRS recently came out, and I'm going to give you a link to the IRS notice in the body of this video, that indicated the timing of when you would account for, in essence, the forgiveness of PPP is one of 3 dates. And really, they're giving you a lot of flexibility on this. Now, I have a strong opinion on why you would want to pick one of their options, but the first option is that you would simply record it, that is the tax-exempt income, as you are spending the money, the PPP, which for everybody would have already happened. So you would account for it in the year that you spent it. The second is they give you the option to account for it when you file for forgiveness. And then the third option is for you to account for it when you receive forgiveness. Now, let's be clear. What the IRS is indicating is that you will deduct the expenses that you're using PPP for as you're spending them. What they're talking about is on the other side of the entry, because this was a loan originally, but when it becomes forgiven, it becomes tax-exempt income. So for a partnership and an S Corp and a C Corp, then you are accounting for that as tax-exempt income, and that would be on typically just Schedule M1, where you account for income on books that is not on the tax return. So this tax-exempt income, when you then account for that, it becomes then an increase to your basis. So when you spend the money from PPP, it's a decrease to your basis. When you account for the tax-exempt income, it's an increase to your basis. So depending on when you account for the forgiveness, which is one of 3 options, when you spend it, or the time you file for forgiveness, or at the time you receive forgiveness, that would be the time that you would then get that loan off your books. And the way it would be taken off your books is it would then be accounted for as tax-exempt income. So when you got PPP, you debited cash, you credited the PPP loan. When you recognize the tax-exempt income, then you will debit the loan and you will credit tax-exempt income. Now, in my opinion, in terms of the best option, so we're allowed 3 different ways to account for, or when we account for, the tax-exempt income. We don't have an option of when we recognize the expenses, but as we recognize the tax-exempt income, as it indicates in this IRS notice. The thing to keep in mind is that when money is spent and it's a tax deduction on those businesses, it's a reduction in the basis. The basis is the tax basis of the owners. So if the basis has been reduced, basis comes into play typically when you're trying to determine if you should deduct, or could, I should say, deduct losses, because you have to have tax basis in order to deduct losses from an S Corp or a partnership. So it makes sense to me in most every circumstance that you would then want to account for the tax-exempt income, the forgiveness that is, as you are spending the money, which you would have already done by now because the covered period has ended for everybody, the 24 weeks to be able to spend the PPP. And the reason for that is that then you would have a basis that would match up to the timing of the expense, to the timing of the increase in the basis, the tax-exempt income. Yes, you could probably find yourself a solution that provides some kind of tax planning where by not recognizing the tax-exempt income in the year of the expense, maybe you're affecting the tax basis in a way that you're preserving or carrying a loss to the next year because there wouldn't be enough basis to take a loss. Therefore, it would carry to the next year. So at the end of the day, you do have the three options. You wouldn't need to go back and amend a return if you decided to not account for the PPP loan forgiveness that you received in 2020 or for your 2020 PPP. But what you do need to do is get that loan off your books one way or another, and the IRS giving you some options gives you some flexibility. But with my clients, we're just simply recognizing it in the year of expense so that we have a basis that matches up, as in the basis reduction and the basis increase due to the tax-exempt income all being in 1 year. So hopefully that will help. This is a recent IRS notice. There's a couple other IRS notices that came out around the same time, also related to PPP, that I'll also give you a link to in the body of this video. All right, hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me. Oh, and hey, I've got some tax seminars. I've got a monthly tax update. Got a link in the body of this video for you there as well. All right, thanks so much. Have a great one.